Hiya. 4 a.m. Whisper here. If you guys saw the video before it got deleted, or you read the Wowhead guide before it got edited, there was a new opener, which I made a video for, and updated the Wowhead guide for, and that ended up being reliant on what has been confirmed to be a bug. So I just spent the greater part of 3 hours undoing that to make sure that, you know, the information's accurate and not using the bug. So we're back doing this again, this time with a different opener, which was the old opener, which, if you don't know what new opener I'm talking about, is not relevant because either way, opener. Some things to understand. Night Stalker snapshots onto damage over time effects. So if I cast Kingsbane, for example, during Shadow Dance, the Night Stalker will apply to the entire Kingsbane, not just during the duration of Shadow Dance. This is an important feature that we will be using. Master Assassin is important to understand, as well as Improved Garrote, Kingsbane, and Thistletea for the sake of this. But we'll go over all of that. If you want a written guide of this instead, the Wowhead guide will have all of this information. Minus maybe one or two things that I'll say, I don't know. But it's basically the same information. So looking at opening on a target, we will start off with what I call the prep phase. The prep phase involves getting up your bleeds, as well as your envenom, your slice and dice, and all of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Night Stalker plus Subterfuge, right? So that we have 3 seconds, and our first 3 GCDs will be Garrote, Ambush, and Rupture. This will snapshot the Garrote, snapshot the Rupture, and get us going into our cooldowns. After that, we get up Slice and Dice and Envenom. So just that part is going to look something like this, right? We get the Rupture up, and then Slice and Dice, and then we get Envenom up. Boom, just like that. With that out of the way, that would be the prep done. After that, we're looking at our regular cooldown phase, which would involve using Deathmark, Shadow Dance, Kingsbane, Shiv. And the important part here is less so the GCD by GCD play, and more of just conceptually what you're going to be trying to do. So the Wowhead guide only lists up to the first Envenom. I'm going to continue going, but it's essentially just using Ambush, going into Envenom, Ambush, Envenom, Ambush, Envenom, and then paying attention to some very specific timers. The timers are in a separate section that I like to think of as like the tail end or the exit of your opener. But just for the cooldown part, I'm going to do the prep and then go into the cooldown part. It's going to be Deathmark, Shiv, Shadow Dance with Kingsbane, Garrote, and Envenom. So looking at that in full speed would be Garrote, Ambush, Rupture, getting up the Slice and Dice, getting up the Envenom, Deathmark, Shiv, Shadow Dance, Kingsbane, Garrote, Envenom. And you're in. Now I do have a guide here. This is a weak aura made by a member of the community. I'm going to be linking that in the description if you want a visual aid. I don't personally use it, but I am going to use it just for this video as a visual representation of when things need to happen. So with that cooldown phase out of the way, we then have a couple of rules to follow. You would just be Ambush, Envenom, Ambush, Envenom, right? Ambush to 4, that is, so it'd be Ambush, Ambush, Envenom, Ambush, Ambush, Envenom. And then the exit of your opener would be involving Shiv, Thistletea, and Vanish. So we have 2 charges of Shiv. The second charge of Shiv is used once the first charge ends. just to layer over the Kingsbane, layer over the Deathmark. Thistle Tea has to be used in the last 6 seconds of Kingsbane. So Thistle Tea here says it increases mastery for 6 seconds. Now, the important thing to note is that the last tick of Kingsbane falls on the expiration of Kingsbane. So if you cast Thistle Tea at, say, 6.2 seconds remaining instead of 6 or 5.9, that's not going to work, because if you cast it before, and the Thistle Tea expires before the Kingsbane expires, you're not going to buff that last tick, right? So 6-second buff on Thistle Tea, you want to be on the on the later side, right? So that if it's 5.8 seconds on Kingsbane, that's fine. If it's 5.5 on Kingsbane, that's fine. Even 5 seconds is okay. But you don't want to be casting Thistle Tea at, say, 7 seconds remaining, because if you cast it with 7 seconds remaining, you're going to be missing that last tick, right? Hopefully that makes sense. And then the last thing is we want to be using Vanish during the last 3 seconds of Kingsbane to utilize Master Assassin. It's going to give us crit chance on the last couple of ticks. Again, the same thing here. You want to be closer to 2 than you do to 4, because if you... it's the same thing as Thistle Tea. If you cast it with, say, 3.5 seconds remaining, the 3 seconds for Master Assassin will end up not covering the last tick. And if you don't cover the last tick, that's a big loss. There's also questions about what to do with the Vanish. You're going to want to at least refresh Garrote, and then otherwise just ambush and envenom. So, hopefully I don't mess this up. Let's just do a full opener. So we're going to start, obviously, in stealth, make sure our poisons are up. You would file, food, all of that. And then let's get into it. I'm going to try and not narrate it and try and focus on it. The muscle memory is still not there, but we'll just try it. So we get the Rupture up, and then Slice, Envenom. And there you go. That was a stock standard opener. So as you can see, the visual aid that I had up on the screen has little tick marks. The tick marks indicate when to use your Shiv, Thistle Tea, and Vanish. So if that's helpful for you to see visually, you can of course do that. And that's sort of the baseline of a single target opener. But there are some advanced stuff that we can talk about. The first thing is, hey Whisper, what happens to the Rupture in stealth? Rupturing in stealth in order to get your Night Stalker up is technically better. It is very, 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 very slightly better. I'm talking like amongst the order of maybe 100 DPS. In general, I wouldn't worry about it too much if you do cast a Rupture in Vanish or in Dance, because you need to refresh it. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in general, I would probably suggest just ambush, ambush, and venom, ambush, ambush, and venom. It's simpler that way, and it ends up just not crowding your head, right? Which is always a plus. The other thing is accelerated openers. So accelerated openers are a little bit more of an advanced topic, but they are important if you're trying to min-max on mythic progression, for example. So in some of the raid fights, for example, we have Tindril. Tindril is the second to last boss. The dragon riding boss. After each intermission, he comes down and you have 20 seconds to burst a shield. Gnarlroot, for example, has a 20-second increased damage taken phase, as does Smolderon, and things like Laradar. The ads spawn 10 seconds in. So making sure that you have damage up for that is important. And for the purposes of having damage up for those moments, our opener is simply too slow. We would end up casting our Kingsbane at around 10 seconds in on most of these situations. And if Kingsbane lasts 14 seconds, casting it 10 seconds in is too slow. It doesn't fit in that 20-second window. So some sacrifices have to be made. And the sacrifice that has to be made, first and foremost, is Rupture. Rupture is the first thing to go when we're talking about accelerating our opener. You still want to make sure that you have Garrote up, Slice and Dice up, and Envenom up. So one way that you might want to do this, for example, is Garrote, Slice and Dice, and then you would Ambush, Mutilate, Envenom, and now you go into your cooldowns. Right? So you just skip the Rupture, and then you would Rupture inside of Dance. The other alternative, if that is very, very, very slow, and by very slow, I mean like still too slow, it's a little bit more difficult to pull off, but you would want to skip the Envenom. Now, that does hurt your Kingsbane as well, but yeah, you would run into a situation where you can essentially do something like this, where you would Garrote, Slice, Ambush, and then just go directly in. So from here, you would then want to Deathmark, Shiv, Shadow Dance, Kingsbane, Envenom, and then Garrote, Rupture, get all that up, and then go from there. That's the fastest that you can really do without losing a lot of damage. I personally wouldn't suggest doing that. In most situations that I found on PTR, doing the first version is typically the better of the two. So you'd want to skip out on the Rupture and just Rupture inside of Dance. But you can play around with that and do whatever you'd like. However, the important part is Garrote. That's first and foremost the priority. Slice and Dice is the second priority. Envenom during Kingsbane and before Kingsbane is priority number 3, and Rupture is priority number 4. So if you're going to try and speed things up, that would be the order in sort of, what drops and what doesn't drop. So I hope that helped with your understanding of the single target opener. And I'm tired, but the content must flow and the information must go out because raid starts tomorrow. So I hope that helped. Written guide on Wowhead is up to date now with the new old change. Also, my cat knocked over my light behind me, and it had like a little glass dome around the light bulb. That shattered, obviously. It's been an eventful night. Anyways, bye. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support.